What's up, guys? Today I wanted to put together a video about kind of M-Unit basics. So this is what an M-Unit is right here. It's from a company called Motogadget. And basically it's to rewire your motorcycle. So it's universal and can be used in tons of different applications. I'm personally using it for my 73 Triumph hardtail build, but could easily be adapted for classic Hondas. I mean, basically any bike. You can run electric start bikes, kickstart only, all of that stuff can be run on this unit. So I'm going to go into some kind of basic details of how it works, and then I'm going to actually hook up all of these components and kind of show you how they're wired and how it kind of works together. In the last section, I'll kind of show you how to change a little bit of the programming, which is really easy, but you can basically change some kind of core functionality where you can have your turn signals kind of flash in different styles. The device does have alarm functionality you can turn on and off that has basically an internal accelerometer. So if the bike's parked and then all of a sudden it gets moved, you can have the lights start going off and the horn start flashing. So there's tons of different options you can do. You can also program it to have basically a one-wire tail light, which I'll show you in this example. So you can kind of simplify the wiring. You can have the different controls. So you can have, basically your high beam and low beam run off of one button. You can have your turn signals run off of one button. You can have programming for clicking and holding down a certain button, say the high beam or right turn signal or whatever it is, and that can act as your start button or your kill switch. So there's tons of that functionality that I won't go into super detail on, but I kind of want to just give you guys an overview and general basics of the M-Unit and how it can be kind of set up in its most simple form. So to go into a little bit more detail about the M-Unit itself, basically there's a power terminal right here. Both of these terminals act as grounds. Then this whole side here is basically your input or signal side, so to speak. Then this whole side is going to be your outputs. So what I mean by that is, if you can read on here, we'll see how close I can get and have it focus. It might not focus this closely. But basically we have like right turn signal, start, horn, turn left, the configure, which is how you program it, headlight, tail light, brake, and the lock button, or lock terminal there. So then on the right side here we have the outputs for right turn signal, start, horn, left turn, low beam, high beam, brake light, and auxiliary. So I'll kind of hook some of this stuff up and show you how it works, but basically in layman's terms, this side, whatever one of these terminals is grounded, it turns on the power for this side. So basically think of it as, all of these are kind of just open. As soon as you ground it to, the frame or to, the negative terminal of the battery, in theory, this would all be done through a switch, which I'll show you. So you flip that switch, it grounds this side. We'll see a little light pop up. It says, okay, my horn is grounded. Boom, push out power from this horn side, and the power will go out and your component will already be grounded on this side. So basically it'll send the power to it. In that case, make the horn go off, make the light go off, whatever it is. So I'm going to kind of wire this up, and it'll make a little bit more sense when we actually have some power running to some different components. You can kind of see how it's traveling through and how it's actually controlling those. All right, this is basic kind of step one. So we have positive and negative terminals of my battery here. Negative, I just have hooked up right to this top post. The other negative I have going into, this is basically just a common ground and a common power distribution block. And I'll use that later, but basically we can kind of forget about this part right now. I'm going to use that to power and ground a bunch of my other components so that it simplifies the wiring going into the M-Unit itself. I have a 30 amp fuse going from my positive directly to the power positive terminal on the M-Unit. I also have another wire on the positive terminal going to one side of my ignition switch. The other side of the ignition switch is flowing into the very bottom, which is the lock terminal on the M-Unit. So that's the basic how I wanted to fire this up. So right now this is completely dead. If I wanted to fire this up, I turn my key on. You can see the M-Unit runs through its power up cycle. Now you can tell the lock terminal has power because we're running power to it. And the auxiliary, which is the bottom on the right hand side, says, okay, I got ground on this side, or I should say I got power on that side, power up this, and it's sending power to my distribution block. So right now, if we got a test light out, you could see that these both have power to them. So let me grab a test light real quick and I can show you that. Okay, so I got my test light. So we ground one side, power on the other side. We got power. Same thing, you know, this is ground up here. I'll have power here. I'll have power on this side. Obviously power at the battery. So that's how the kind of general, how to fire up the M-Unit. This auxiliary is what you can power your ignition coils off of, you know, and basically a lot of the components on the bike. If you're kind of running a more modern bike that needs power to things like an ECU or basically anything that's going to be key on power. So anything that you want to be powered up when the key is turned, you can kind of have powered off of this auxiliary terminal. That's why I'm running it to this blocks. So this now gives me 4 terminals to run power to that are all still controlled by this one wire right here. So we're going to kind of take this another step further and hook up, we'll start with headlight and brake light, and then we'll move on to turn signals and I can kind of show you how that works. So we have our headlight, tail light, and headlight switch wired up. So to give you the basics on how I did this, the headlight has 3 wires: ground, high beam, low beam. So ground, I ran to my common ground right here. High beam and low beam, I ran to one low beam right here. High beam's right below it. So these connectors are really easy. It's just a flathead. You just strip the end of the wire. It slides right in. You tighten down the flathead. You don't have to have any kind of connectors or anything like that. So you just need, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch of wire hanging out. So you can kind of jam it in there and close it down and get a good connection. So that's all the hookup for the headlight. So we have a ground, boom, and then 2 power wires running to the respective high and low beam on this side of the M-Unit. For the tail light, we have a common ground right here. And then we also have a brake and a tail light power switch. So one of the beauties of the M-Unit is I have this one programmed to run as a 1-wire tail light, meaning the brake light and the tail light, which the difference, if you don't know, is tail light is what's on, you know, anytime the headlight's on, brake light obviously when you are braking. So we have just 1 wire that runs out of the brake terminal, then splits into the power for the tail light and the brake light coming out of the brake light itself. So there's 3 wires for that as well, ground and then power for both tail and brake. Again, the beauty of how I have this one programmed, and I'll show you later on in this video how to do it, we have it wired for 1-wire tail light, so we'd only have to run 1 wire all the way back. Then right before it gets to the tail light, it does still need to split into 2 wires to actually go to, you know, the tail and the brake light terminals on the tail light itself. If this was just a regular tail light bulb, like this one for example, it's still going to be the same deal. So we have a ground and then a tail light power and a brake light power. So same difference here. In this example, the red and the yellow could be connected together and then just one of them run all the way up to the M-Unit on a typical, you know, tail light bulb socket. I'm just showing the LED because I'm going to get into turn signals here in a little bit. Next component of the equation is the headlight switch. So I have this just set up as a momentary switch. So I push it down, it makes a connection, I let off and it's open. And I'm going to show you how the M-Unit lets you control high beam and low beam with just 1 button switch. So, all right, let's turn the key, power everything up. So you see, turn on the bike, boom, still just have our power right here. So this is just like it was a minute ago until we hit our headlight switch. Hey, it's getting dark out. Boom, I hit my headlight switch. I have my low beam on and I have my tail light on. Sounds pretty good. If I'm going to pass somebody, I can tap this momentarily and it will actually flash my high beam. So you see right here, this LED will jump down to the high beam, which is right below it. If I hold it down for just a little bit longer, I switch to high beam. So now my high beam is on. Tail light's still on. You can see the LED on the high beam indicator is on. Hold it down a little bit again, switches back to low beam. And you can see every time I hit the switch, the signal side lights up saying, hey, I'm getting signal right here, boom, do something about it. So that's how we switch between high and low beam. If I hold it down for a second, turns it off. So that's how you can turn on and then control high and low beam all from one button. Turn it back on, switch to high beam, switch to low beam, turn them all off. So pretty sweet. Next step, we are going to wire up a brake light switch and show you how that works. Got my brake switch. So this would be a rear brake switch where you pull it down. This is off my Triumph, but it's almost identical on classic Hondas and a lot of other bikes. Basically, this would go on the foot, lever itself for the rear brake. And when you pull it, it makes the connection. You let off, it doesn't. So just show you real quick. Everything else still works. Turn our key. I'll show you before we turn on the headlight. Going to hit the brakes. Brake light works. Turn on my headlight. So now we have tail light. Pull my brake. Pretty cool. So how I wired this up, let me just shut all this down. So very similar to the rest of the things. Again, we're just looking to ground the appropriate terminal. So one side of the switch, common ground. Other side of the switch, right into the brake light itself, or the brake light terminal, I should say. And we didn't have to change any of the wiring for the tail light, again, because we have it set up for that one wire tail light already. So we're going to complicate this just one more step and add our turn signals into the mix so you can kind of see how that works. Turn signals. So I went ahead and just kept this LED strip. I didn't bother with front turn signals just because we already have a spaghetti situation going on here anyway, and you guys will get the idea. So I have a switch here that in the middle it's not doing anything. Flip it one way, I get power or a connection out of one side. Switch it the other way, I get a connection out of the other side. So the important thing here is that this switch really doesn't matter what type. You could also do this off of two buttons, similar to this, which is what I'm going to actually run on my bike. The idea here is you have basically two controls. So you got a left and a right turn signal, obviously. So this will kind of make sense just with this type of switch, just because it's what I had. But basically we have ground, and then I flip the switch one way, it grounds one of these terminals. I flip the switch the other way, it grounds the other terminal. So again, the main thing we're doing here is grounding whichever side we want to control. So I'll turn my key. We'll just leave the other lights off for now so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Then we'll go for right turn signal. So what I did is temporarily grounded the right turn signal terminal here. The M-Unit already has a built-in flasher relay, so it's controlling the rest right now. So if I had two, I could have two wires running to this right turn signal output, and that would run the front and the rear. But obviously we're just running one right now, and it'll flash all day till kingdom comes. So that's how that works. I switch it back the same direction, it's going to turn it off. So that's the same functionality as if I pressed a button and let go, it would stay on until I press that button and let go again, it would turn it off. Same with the left turn signal, and then turn it off. So the M-Unit does let you change the type of flash you have. It's a little bit hard to tell on this because this has a built-in function where it flashes really quickly. So right now it is set to just kind of a normal on-off. You can have it kind of fade in and out. You can have it flash quickly, and that's if you have a LED, incandescent, whatever kind of bulb you have. You can have it kind of flash differently based on what you want to do. So let's test everything together at once. And I'm sorry that this is such a jumble of wires, but hopefully you're kind of following along with what I'm doing here. So turn the key on. Bike is on. It's nighttime. We're going to turn on our headlight. So we got headlight and tail light. We are coming up to a stop, and I'm going to pull my brake. Got brake light on. We're making a right-hand turn, so flip that on. And you can kind of see, I mean, everything's working as it should. Made my turn. Oh, it's kind of dark on this road. Let me turn on my high beam. Back to low beam. I can flash if I want. Click and turn that off. And that's it. I mean, we pull up to our, parking space, and we turn our key, shuts everything down, and we are ready to kind of leave the bike, and we're done with it. So that's your kind of absolute basic rundown of the functionality of the M-Unit. So things like your starter solenoid, for example, if you had an electric start bike, there's a terminal right here for start. It's the same exact situation as anything else on the bike. So one half of your starter solenoid would be grounded. The power terminal would be run into this side. On this side, you would have your, button just like this, for example. One side of that is grounded. As soon as you hit that button, it's going to throw power to the starter terminal on the M-Unit. Boom, it's going to throw power to your starter solenoid, which is then, of course, going to power your starter motor. So I know that was a kind of long-winded explanation, but basically anything you want to power is going to be off of this side. So ignition coils, like I said, would be off of this auxiliary. Take indicator lights, for example. You would run a power to one side of the light from your kind of common auxiliary key on power. And then how a lot of those lights work is they're actually triggered by the grounding. So for example, a neutral switch will have power all the way to the actual switch in the transmission. And then when the bike is in neutral, it grounds that, and that's what lights up your indicator light on the dash. So basically you would just run a power wire from your power terminal to the light. The other wire out of the light goes down to your neutral switch, and then it kind of just operates as normal. So as soon as that switch is grounded, boom, it'll turn on the light. As soon as you go into gear and get out of neutral, it will do the same. So same goes for oil lights. Those are typically grounded when you have low oil pressure. So you would just power up one side of the light. The other side of the ground is controlled by the switch on the bike itself. For a high beam indicator, you ground one side of it, and then you can run a second power wire off of just the high beam terminal here. So it would be throwing power to your high beam, your big light, and would also be throwing power to your tiny indicator light to let you know that the high beam is in fact on. What else could be wired up to that? I mean, any kind of accessories for the bike, anything else you're running that is key on would basically be controlled all from right here. So this side, of this power distribution block is grounded all of the time, and this power is only powered on when our key is switched. That is key because if we had it wired up directly to this terminal, it would get power all of the time, and it would kill your battery because half of your stuff would be powered up all the time, regardless of if the key is switched or not. For this situation, I don't have a kill switch wired up. I just have it run off of the key itself. So I turn it off, it shuts the whole system down. If you wanted to run a kill switch, you could run it in between basically the power wire to your ignition coil. So you could have a switch that, boom, when it's flipped and it's making a connection, then the power is running, from your power distribution block through the switch into your ignition coil, and you're good to go. You break that connection by flipping the switch the other way. Your ignition coil is no longer getting power. The bike's no longer going to run. So that's how you can easily wire up, a kill switch into this situation if you wanted as well. Again, I just simplified it here so that we could just run it all off of the key. So now I'm going to go into I'm going to try to make it really brief of how the menus work on the M-Unit to change some of the programming functions. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit of how to program the M-Unit and the different things that you can do. So you can change, again, like I mentioned earlier, how the signals work. You can turn on and off alarm functionality, how the brake lights work. Again, like setting up one-wire tail light, or what I'm going to show you in this example is when I pull the brake, I want my brake light to flash instead of just stay on solid. So we're just going to change that, and I'll kind of show you how that process works. Quick little tidbit, you can actually use this configure terminal as a kill switch as well and program it that way. But basically what I have here is I just stole my headlight switch and I moved it from headlight up to configure. So one side is grounded, the other side's running to the configure terminal. So we're going to turn the key on, immediately click and hold this button down for 2 seconds, and that's going to put us into our configuration menu. So turn the key, click and hold, 1, 2, let off, boom. Now that this is flashing, we know we're in the configuration menu. I'll throw a graphic up on the screen here that kind of lets you know what these menus look like, but basically how they have it laid out is each terminal is numbered on the left side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. On this side, it's A, B, C, D, and so on, all the way down. So for brake light, it's going to be the top one, which is number 1. So, okay, I want to get into the brake light submenu, click and hold for a second. Now it puts us over here. So this is where we select, okay, in brake light, do you want configuration A, B, C, D? And again, if you look at the graphic, it kind of is a little bit more clear of what I'm talking about. If I want a flashing brake light, I want to go to configuration C. So that's the third one down. Now I click and hold again. Now I'm back in here. I can go down and change another setting if I want. If I'm totally done, I can just click and hold for a few seconds until it cycles through. Now I can turn my key off. Until it powers off. Turn it back on. Now when I pull my brake, we got flashing brake light. So, pretty cool. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this M-Unit kind of run-through video. I hope I covered kind of everything you need to know and answered any questions you guys might have about kind of general setup. Please hit me up, throw a comment down there if you guys have any questions at all. I'm going to be actually wiring this up completely in my bike here in the next couple of days. So it'll be fresh on my mind, and hopefully I'll be able to answer any questions you guys might have. You can follow along for the channel for kind of bike builds and more general how-to stuff. I've built a couple of kind of cafe-style bikes. I'm building a bobber now. We're actually getting into classic cars and a bunch of other stuff. So if this kind of stuff interests you, then I encourage you to kind of check out some of my other videos and like if this video helped you. And yeah, we'll see you guys in another video soon. Make sure to drop if you guys have any suggestions for kind of more how-to videos or anything in the future. Throw them in the comments below. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.